In this quick tip video, I'm going to show you how to transfer your work from a circular needle onto double pointed needles. Typically for hats, when you're knitting a hat and you start on a circular needle to get the initial part of the hat, but then as you're shaping the crown, your number of stitches on the circular needle keep going down, and it may get difficult to continue working on a 16-inch circular needle. And so at that point, you may want to switch your work from a smaller needle or from the smaller needle onto double pointed needles. Now, if you're working with the magic loop method of the circular needle, you could certainly keep continuing, but I think it really helps once it gets down to a smaller number of stitches that you know, transferring your work to a double pointed needle. So let me show you how to do that. Here I have a small little swatch or small little piece of circular knitting that I've done with about maybe 36 stitches, just to demonstrate. I've done this to demonstrate the magic loop method, and I kept knitting a little bit more. As you can see, we have a nice little circular method or circular piece here, but at this point, let's say I want to transfer to the double pointed needles. Now you do want your double pointed needles to be the same size as your circular needle that you're working on, and unless your pattern calls for you to switch to a smaller size needle, but typically if you're just transferring over, you want it to be of the same size. And your marker, let's say, would have been at this position. Of course, now you don't need the marker anymore, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking these stitches here and transferring them onto 3 circular needles. Now or rather 3 double pointed needles. Double pointed needles come usually in sets of 4 or 5 needles, and typically you would put your stitches on 3 needles to make a triangle like that, and then you would knit with the 4th needle around, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Now you could also transfer your stitches onto 4 needles and then use the 5th needle to work around. You could do it that way as well, but I typically do it with the 3 needles. I just think it's a little bit more manageable for me with the 3 needles. But if your number of stitches are way too many to feel comfortable on 3 needles, you can certainly use 4 needles. Okay, so now I had done this using the magic loop method, so you can see I have a much bigger circular needle than I need for these 36 stitches that I have on here. But now I'm going to transfer them onto this needle. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just following the magic loop method. I'm just going to pull this out just to get the yarn. You actually don't need to, but I'm just pulling it out to get it out of the way here. And I am going to, so I would have continued knitting right here, right? So instead, I'm just going to take one of the double pointed needles and insert them here, and I'll start knitting using this as my right hand needle rather than the circular needle. Now I'm using my double pointed needle, and I would just knit onto that. Follow your pattern. In this case, I'm just doing a simple knit stitch, but whatever your pattern is, you would follow that pattern and you would just knit onto this needle directly. So I had about 36 stitches on here, I think. So I'm going to transfer a third of them here. So that would make it 12 stitches. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. Move these up. 11 and 12. At that point, you take your next needle, insert that, and get your yarn from this needle and just continue knitting onto this needle. So 1, 2, and it might feel a little bit awkward when you're first doing it, but once you get all your stitches onto the needle, it won't be as bad. Okay, and at this point, I'm actually just gonna pull these stitches over to bring them to this end of the needle so that I can continue knitting. 6, 7, 8. Bring my stitches up here. 9, 10, and a couple more to get 12 there, and then that leaves my last set of 12 stitches, which I'll take my 3rd needle and I will insert that and just knit the last 12 stitches onto the 3rd needle. 3, 4, and just a few more to go. Give myself a little bit more yarn here. And there we go. The last stitch is on. Okay. And now you don't really have a stitch marker to know where the start of your row is, but having this tail here helps, because now you can look at the tail and know that your row essentially starts from here. So this is sort of the first needle 1, needle 2, needle 3 as such. So you know that your row starts from this end. So once you have your stitches on the circular or the double pointed needles, you then use this 4th needle to keep knitting around. So you would then just insert it and knit. So at each stitch you're pretty much transferring the stitches from one of the double pointed needles in that triangle onto this 4th needle. And so each time you will have one needle that'll come free to then use that needle to knit the next stitches on the next double pointed needle. So here we go. We have the first stitches that we've transferred over, right? So I've done a 1/3 of the row. Now I have another free needle. I will then continue my work onto this one, and so on and so forth. And that's it. You'll just keep knitting to the point where if you need to start decreasing stitches, etc. At this point, once you're onto 3 double pointed needles, you should be good to go. Even if you get down to maybe just 2 stitches on each needle, that should be fine. Or if you use four needles and work with the 5th needle, that's fine too. And this is how you would do a transfer from a circular needle to a double pointed needle. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment in the comments box, and please subscribe to my channel, Knittycat's Knits. Happy knitting!